All right, this week we're looking at on the franchise talks. We want to talk Mr. Franchise, a man without a franchise who found a franchise, who's only been in a few franchises, but definitely uh, one of the biggest movie stars that's ever existed. And we got to put that start putting these guys in like historical context now. Like when we're
Yeah,
talking about the one and only Fresh Prince or the Stale King. I don't know. How do we evolve that? Fresh King,
yeah. I don't know if we could go with Stale King, man. Like,
Fresh King, or Stable King. I don't know. But Will Smith,
yeah,
Willard Carroll Smith the second, apparently is his full name. I never looked that up.
yeah. I knew it was something like that. Because
Willard Carroll Smith the second. Uh, Strong name, very proper. Another black person with a very proper name.
from Aaron Covington and Bernard Harris, you have the stamp of approval.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking about that. Kendrick Lamar,
Oh,
sir.
for
You
sure.
know, a lot of very proper old English style names. But Will Smith, Bad Boys 4, Bad Boys Ride or Die, and not Bad Boys for Life, which they should have done, but okay, I'll give him a pass.
That was a
Bad
very
Boys
interesting
Forever, Bad Boys for
choice.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting choice not to make that move. Because I don't know that you really gain points by avoiding it either.
definitely should have happened. But here we are, Bad Boys Ride or Die. And it's Will Smith is so interesting. This is why we wanted to talk about him, because he's not really a franchise. He hasn't done a lot of franchises. He hasn't done a lot of sequels. Uh, um, really, all he has is Men in Black.
I was gonna say, I think Men in Black's really the only like franchise that he had for a very long time.
100%. He did three of those, which were great. Especially the first one is amazing.
Does he have any other sequels? I mean, I know that there's a second Bad Boys, obviously, because we're at four, but
Not for him, only Bad Boys. Men in Black, which
and
that
Bad
was like a
Boys.
traditional franchise at first. It was like movie, couple years. I guess it was 5 years between the first and the second, but we knew it was coming really.
Yeah.
Then the
Ends
third
on
one,
the kind of like the
uh-huh.
adventure begins sort of hook.
The third one was actually, man, 10 years later. So the third one, it was a little like we
Okay.
weren't sure it was happening. And Will went on kind of an Oscar chase there
Hmm.
for being, he went on to like, he did a couple more action movies, but that was like Pursuit of Happiness, Era, um, and then Men in Black 3. And then with Bad Boys, the first one was in 95. Bad Boys 2 was 2003, 8 years later,
Hmm.
which we weren't expecting or anything. It just kind of popped up. Then Bad Boys 3 when was that?
Like 2 years ago,
It was
or
very
not,
recent,
not two, but like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I definitely feel like it's a
2020,
post. Okay.
17 years later. And then they followed that right up because Bad Boys 3 made a ton of money. Followed that right up with Bad Boys 4 Ride or Die 4, Bad Boys 4 Ride or Die.
Uh,
Uh,
Bad Boys 3, also called Bad Boys for Life.
Man,
It gets deep.
they got that backwards, right?
Yeah. Anyways.
And I'm sure if they're gonna do a fifth one, like Bad Boys is now Fast and Furious. you know,
Yeah, I think
it is
it's
a
exactly that.
it is that, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what, and I don't say that in any sort of way. Like, when you have a template, right? Whether you're creating a very artsy film or a very artistic kind of literary sort of work, or you're creating something that's just kind of um, more commercial or action or whatever you want to call it, there's always a template. So I would definitely agree that's the template for these new Bad Boys movies. It's Fast and Furious, and why not? It's successful.
100%. There's a similar family theme that runs through them.
Hmm.
Um, Miami as a setting, and I don't know where all Fast and Furious are set, but it feels like,
Everyone's in Miami.
Miami. It feels like slightly Hispanic but multicultural thing going on.
Yeah,
A lot
for
of car
sure.
chases. Bad Boys obviously isn't centered around cars in any way, but there's a lot of car chases and then just big action, big action. You know,
Yeah, they both kind of take like the old like Bond exotic beach locale thing and like
mm,
transport it into like American kind of proper espionage action, you know?
yeah. But the Bad Boys probably has more humor and more inventive shootouts, like the way they're shot,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that's a staple. Going back to the first one, but they really cemented in the second one. In the shootout, like with the Haitians at that house. I don't know if you remember,
Yeah,
but that was like the camera. That was like
the
Michael Bay going
circling.
all out,
Yeah.
doing full circles. What a Zopounds or whatever. We're like, oh, we're going to shoot you, ma. Oh my goodness, that was so ridiculous. But
That I think Bad Boys 2 in many ways is Michael Bay going full out. Like there's that movie is a
well, they knew
lot
they couldn't
comparative.
lose.
That's true.
I'm sure if
And
they
he
did
was
the
already
market
on his own
research,
journey.
bro, that was like peak time. There was no way that movie could lose. It's actually astonishing that it took so long to do a third one. I think maybe they had to do their own thing and really
Hmm.
lock in who they wanted to direct. Because I don't think Michael Bay was going to do another one either way.
Right.
He was doing
He was doing
Transformers by then,
Transformers. Yeah.
and he did like Ninja Turtles, and then he did movie with The Rock and stuff. He was, everybody wanted to do their own thing,
Yeah, definitely.
but two definitely made $275 million. So
It was a huge movies everywhere. It's definitely like you see it all the time. This was the era that Michael Bay birthed um, in his own style first, and then I think across the industry, which is the era of the 40-minute action scene and the 2.5 hour action movie.
yeah,
Like before that, you don't really get that. Um, and I feel like, and Bad Boys 2 was definitely like he did that in that Pearl Harbor movie. I remember that. And then like Bad Boys 2, he brought it into like a contemporary action movie. And then every movie since has largely been like those longer action scenes, those longer action films. It just
it's
kind of
interesting
iconic.
because the first Bad Boys was in the old style. It was more plot, story. I think the guys were even like to me more charismatic, and you had young, energetic Martin, so he was like really in his comedy bag. Tia Leone, and they had the mistaken identity thing, which is not something that continued within the franchise, but was a real funny bit
Mm-hmm.
in that first movie. But what's interesting about Will Smith, I think, is that despite not doing franchises, a lot of franchises, he's probably, we talk about who's the last movie stars. Somebody tweeted, is Will Smith the last movie star, last bankable movie star? Um, and he's up there. It's a small list,
It's a very
two
small
year
list.
2 years ago when Top Gun came out, they said Tom Cruise is the last movie star. It's Tom Cruise. Now it's Will Smith, but the list is really what? Tom, Will,
Maybe
Denzel,
Brad, Denzel,
Brad, Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks for sure. George Clooney. I would say he's
No,
still no,
I would
yeah.
not say George Clooney.
You're right. You're right. He hasn't had a solid hit in a minute.
People like Clooney, but he also does such a variety of things, and he'll take
Right.
time off to direct. It's not that he's not a superstar or whatever you want to call
That's
him,
fair. That's fair.
but bankable
Yeah.
$100
No,
million
no,
dollar
no.
movie guy. I don't
Yeah,
know,
you're right. You're right. You're right.
and I don't know
You're
how
right.
many women are on there that you're going to see because it's their movie. It's
Yeah,
tough.
that's tough. I mean, I feel like maybe 15 years ago we could have had that conversation. But I think
You can have the
similar.
conversation at any time. What do you mean?
Well, I just mean there were. I think there would have been more. I think you could have said like
More would have been more. Yeah,
A Julia Roberts. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I think there would have been more. I think the same is true of like black stars in
I wonder
general
if it's like
back
maybe
then.
Meryl Streep.
Yeah, yeah, probably.
Regina Hall actually is like one of the highest grossing actresses. Like her movies always do well.
I
And I
didn't know
don't think
that.
think about her like that, but I think she chooses really smartly, and her career has a progression.
Hmm.
That maybe that's clearer than most, especially on the comedy side. But her movies always do well.
Hmm.
Maybe somebody younger, Scarlett or Jennifer Lawrence, maybe. I'm not sure though. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
maybe definitely Jennifer Lawrence for sure. I think is in that conversation,
Yeah,
but definitively on the list, as you said, it's a short list.
it's a short list. So, and in that way, Will Smith specifically more than a lot of others. Denzel's probably in there too, because I think Equalizer is his only franchise, so we'll have to talk about him. But
Hmm.
where Will Smith is the franchise,
Yeah.
he is the franchise. His personality, him as a draw, and now what he does with social media and marketing. He's a great interview all the
Mhm.
time,
All the time.
and he has at this point, you know, so much surrounding him of an aura and persona. Like, you know, Will Smith is a franchise, and in the movie, you're gonna get certain things. You're gonna get the charisma. He's gonna flash the guns, which is funny because he wasn't like he became that really
Hmm.
after Ali. Ali is when he got big.
Yeah.
But before that, I mean, in
He was
Independence
fit. He
Day,
was fit for sure, but
he,
he was never like a big dude.
he definitely buffed up a little for Independence Day. But like Men in Black, they were in suits, didn't matter. Wild Wild West, which was a franchise he tried to launch, didn't quite take off. But he was an old Western, like long sleeves. It wasn't about how like
He's
jacked he was. Now he's
doesn't he have the shirtless the open shirt chase foot chase in Bad Boys 1 maybe?
sure does, sure
I was gonna
does.
say it's either that or a tank top. I can't remember. I think Martin's in the tank top.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely
he
was just
was.
young and skinny though.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I just want to say Bad Boys 1 undeniable classic. I think of all of those folks' careers, and they've all had great work since, but it makes sense that it launched um, a franchise, and it is really interesting to think about it because it is of a time before franchises are what they are now, right? And
Yeah,
I think Will and Denzel, part of that kind of aura of just maybe only having one one real franchise or so is often like they're now, right? Like it's this franchise era that we're in now. I don't want to draw everything to Marvel or to Disney, but like in these last 10 to 12 years, like franchises have become the major thing, and
yeah.
Equalizer is of that time. Bringing Bad Boys back is of that time. John Wick is of that time, right? Like these folks who had these careers beforehand where they were the star, you showed up, it was going to be a good action movie or maybe even a good drama, like in Denzel's case. Um, Whereas now, not that they still don't have the
Right.
cachet to
No,
do
like
it, but
like it
it's
was
different.
different. It was a different like set of requirements to hold
Absolutely. It
that
was
position.
absolutely.
It was like, oh, you got your cop movie, you got your boxing movie, maybe you do a sci-fi thing. Now you're a lawyer. Like these were kind of the criteria that they were
Yeah.
following that had been set before. Now it's your franchise, where you're like a badass military or martial artist or police officer, but you're fighting somebody with
Yeah.
these big action set pieces. That's like the requirement now to be a top star. And it doesn't have to, I think these guys are showing it doesn't have to necessarily be Marvel, but it does have to be something kind of stylized, something a little
Mhm.
hyper realistic.
Yeah, some a little bit elevated that's in line with not just Marvel, but also to your point earlier, right? Fast and the Furious, which that first one is kind of a just a crime drama with fast cars, but they
Yeah,
elevated over time.
the first two, and then the third one was yeah. But here's what's interesting about this too, because Will Smith and Denzel, it's actually Denzel. You ever see that? Okay, Will Smith and Denzel
Hmm.
don't do a lot of franchises. They're maybe just getting into the franchise game. Um, they almost never have Well, in Bad Boys, he has romantic counterparts. I think he gets married in this one,
Mm,
but it's such a like secondary story, and they don't build the romance because it's like a new girl he's marrying, not Gabrielle
right.
Union from the second one, not the girl from the third one. Denzel almost never has romantic leads anymore, maybe in the last 20 years
Yeah.
as black leads. But then when you look at somebody like another kind of guy that's his own franchise, Keanu Reeves, who's kind of his own franchise, but also the king of franchises, going back to The Matrix,
Oh, for
obviously
sure.
John Wick, Bill and Ted. He's
Bill
done
and
a
Ted.
number. Also doesn't have consistent romantic leads. That's interesting about franchises.
I think what's interesting about that, well, I mean, they've all done it. I would say I think what's interesting about that is Keanu, just because his I think career maybe has been maybe not more eclectic, but more eclectic up early. You know what I mean? I think there is that time where Will Smith was doing quite a variety of roles, and of
Yeah,
course, like Denzel sprinkled it in. But like you do have with Keanu, like he does have like straight up romantic movies, or you know what I
right. He
mean?
has
Like
rom-coms. I mean, Will
he's
Smith
got,
has Hitch.
yeah, exactly.
So like
So
they're out there, but within the franchises, it's usually like John Wick is a dead wife. Bad Boys, he just dates somebody new that we kind of barely see.
yeah.
Denzel's always saving some kid or something. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
Denzel's always he's either not with anybody because he can't because of
He
duty,
just
right?
can't do it. He's too focused
Or
on his job, too much of a killer.
he's already just got a wife who's like baked into the plot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
just in the
it's
background.
causing some trouble at home because of duty.
So with Will Smith too, um, he has a couple movies that should be franchises. Okay,
Let's go through that.
let's let, let, let's do that. Wild Wild West at this point, just make another one.
Yeah, just make another one for sure.
It's nostalgia. People don't care about the reception back then anymore. That'll be fun now. You could
For
make
sure.
another Wild Wild West.
And the premise is still like a hoot.
iRobot demands a second movie. We need to know what happened with those robots and that telling of the story, even going back to the books or whatever. iRobot,
For sure.
Detective Spooner. Um, I Am Legend, I hear they are making a sequel. I think with Michael B. Jordan and Will Smith.
Mm. Yeah, that's what I heard.
So that's like a double light skin dose of beefcake, action, zombie killing, vampire slaying, mania. I
Yeah,
think that's
man.
going to be huge.
Yeah, I think I haven't heard much recently, but whenever that comes out, that's
Yeah, they
it's
got to
gonna be
start.
huge.
What's going on with that? We need to know. And Hancock, Hancock.
Yeah, Hancock should have had. Look, Hancock is still a fascinating premise. Sure, the movie stumbles a bit, but it's not the first movie to stumble a little bit and then get reboot or recon in the sequel.
Retcon in the second one. Yeah,
Retcon,
just
yeah,
we can just
yeah, for
figure out
sure.
something different. It's not that important. You can
It's
like
not that
loosely tied
important.
in.
Yeah,
Hancock needs to come. Yeah,
you reveal a new backstory, and it's better. Who cares? That
yeah.
movie does deserve a sequel.
And the only problem, not the only problem, but the issue with the first one really is there was no good villain.
Yeah, it didn't have like a real solid through line,
No.
and it
So
tried a couple things.
you could skip a lot of backstory stuff in the second one if the villain is dope and he just has
That's
to
true.
focus on saving some people in the villain and you lose all this marketing, like all this other stuff. And it's like a superhero movie. Hancock. I'm sure Jason Bateman will come back. Charlize is the one you kind of don't need in the story, and that kind of she's the one that complicates it, her character. Anyway,
Hmm.
there's also Bright, which was a Netflix movie,
Yeah, I remember that.
and I don't think that got a great reception, but it's just a cop movie with orcs. Like,
Yeah.
do the next one. Trust me, it'll be fine.
Hmm.
And then Gemini Man is another one. Maybe that's
Gem-
harder to do the sequel because he played a young and an old him, but that's the other one.
yeah, Gemini Man would be an interesting sequel. It was a movie that was okay, but more interesting than I thought. The
I
technology
think
was interesting.
I think Gemini Man could wait a while and it would
Hmm.
be good in like a decade. Oh, and
Ooh.
another one they could do, Focus, with him and Margot Robbie, where he was like a con man.
Oh yeah, like second caper.
Yeah, they could do that one. in a sequel because they did that Now You See Me like 3 times, 2 or 3 times, that
They
magician
did.
movie.
I forgot that's a caper like franchise. I
Yeah.
always forget about that.
So I know somebody out there has a crazy caper plot for smooth, charismatic con man Will Smith, whether Margot's in it or not,
More
That's
of our smooth black actors just need caper joints. That's I'm gonna throw that out there because the opportunity arose.
capers are so hard now.
Yeah,
It's too much
sir.
technology. Like capers are so hard.
You got to set all those. There ought to be period pieces every damn one of them.
Yeah, yeah. Same characters. It's 1982.
Right. No one has a cell phone.
So yeah, well, you know, it is going to be, I would say the next 10 years of his career are maybe more interesting
Hmm.
than except for the first 6 years of his movie career.
Yeah.
And it's not that his projects in between weren't good. He's got some really good movies in here, but just what could happen, like everything after Fresh Prince, Independence Day, Men in Black. So after he does like Men in Black 2, it's kind of like, oh, we see where you're going and what's happening, and we look forward to it. But now it's like we actually don't know what's gonna happen, you know?
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think there was definitely a time where obviously I think he wanted to try some things artistically. You don't make that variety of films if not. But it definitely seems like at this point he's back to having some fun within this action space. And yeah, I'd
But
be
and he
really
still
interested.
did, he still won an won an Oscar for King Richard just what 2 years
That's
ago.
for sure. And he did the movie about the enslaved people and that was on Apple TV a couple years ago.
Emancipation, yeah.
Emancipation, yeah.
So
So he's still doing it.
so what kind of role, two questions and then we'll be done. What
Okay.
kind of role, what kind of character would you want to see Will Smith play moving forward?
Oh,
Franchise or not? Franchise or not?
franchise or not? I'm gonna go both. All right. I'm gonna do one of each.
All right.
Not franchise. I'm gonna knock it out the park real quick. I just want to see him do like maybe a quieter something, um, just set in West Philadelphia. Like
Ooh, yeah, back
he,
home.
he yeah
Okay.
he's getting a chance to play someone from the neighborhood that didn't move on to the life that he had. It doesn't have to be specifically that, but like
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah. Just like a
someone in the
guy
neighborhood.
in the neighborhood that helps people or gets into something, whatever. Yeah.
Something, yeah, I definitely want to see that. Um, and then second thing, I think I'm going to say type of uh character is also one of the sequels that I would like to see that we didn't mention, which is Enemy of the State.
Enemy, I was just came to mind too. Like that could have been
Uh,
a
that
sneaky little
enemy,
franchise. Even if he didn't do the next one, it could have still been a franchise that
yeah, for
carried on with
sure,
some other people or something. Just the premise, and it's such a surveillance state. We're in surveillance. Surveillance has gotten more since then. It could have kept
absolutely,
getting crazier.
absolutely. But yeah, I'd love to see him in some like some for real espionage. It's always a genre I enjoy.
I'd like to see him as maybe a general, something like that,
Mm, hmm
a leader of a thing, or also a villain,
hmm
maybe even a quiet villain, like just a real menacing villain.
mm,
And then quick, which one of these movies, besides Hancock, because we went into that already,
yeah.
would you most? Oh no, well, even including Hancock, would you most want to see if he did a sequel? If his next movie was a sequel to one of these that he didn't make a sequel to,
What would they
make your
want it to
pick.
be?
Would make your pick.
That's a great question because even though I just talked about Enemy of the State, I don't know if that's the one I would want most. The one I would want most, I think it's iRobot.
Man,
I
I
think
was
it.
kind of leaning. I was kind of leaning that
I
too.
wasn't even thinking that until you asked it. But I think it's iRobot, man.
I was kind of thinking that too because I do want a Hancock sequel. I actually think After Earth
Yeah,
could continue. Like that was not,
one I've been meaning to
uh,
watch.
that was a movie that kind of got a bad rap at the time, and it may be a little uneven when you watch it, but there's a lot of good in there.
Mhm.
and he was like a real harsh dad. Y- that movie, that world could have gone somewhere else.
Mhm.
So I would like to see that again. But I Robot, I think we're just in the age of all this AI and tech, and it's like more stories about how that evolves.
Exactly.
Um,
The special effects technology have gotten like it looked great at the time. Right now, it would look indistinguishable, right? Like
right.
they do a combination of like live action, puppetry, and stuff. It looked great, and also it's got a little bit of that detective feel to it, and I think
Yeah.
that's something that's been missing a lot from his career. So I'd love to see that again.
Yeah. I think I Robot's a little bit. I, I don't know who rates or doesn't rate things. I don't like always saying something is underrated, but
Sure.
I just think I Robot is something that could be in a few more conversations. We talk about sci-fi action,
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
and him with the robotic arm was such a good thing, like a marker, franchise marker.
Yeah, it's interesting, like to think about like I think that was an Alex Proyas movie, who along with the Matrix really kind of birthed that like kind of dark cyberpunk space when he did Dark City. And
Oh
like
yeah,
obviously, we mentioned Keanu in the Matrix, but of course Will was supposed to be in the Matrix and all of that. So
yeah.
but yeah, I could definitely see it. iRobot.
Oh man, and what his career would have been if he had done the Matrix,
Can you imagine?
I I, I,
I
I
don't
don't even know, but maybe not that different. Maybe he does the Matrix, doesn't do a couple other things. Fine, you know what I mean? Maybe
yeah,
it all is kind of balances out, but
yeah, maybe
man,
they
that
never do sequels.
it's crazy to think because well, but Keanu ended up being just the right guy for it, I guess. In
Yeah,
hindsight, I don't know. It was great, but yeah, that was great, man. I look forward to. I actually haven't seen Bad Boys 4 yet, so I'm gonna go see it. Try to see it soon.
same.
And that's it. That's it for franchise talk.
All right. Good talk.